I understand I have to move the mic up a little bit. Is that good? Okay. Our first reading today comes from the strange book of Daniel, chapter 12, verses 1 through 3. At that time, Michael, the great prince, the protector of your people, shall arise. There shall be a time of anguish, such as has never occurred since nations first came into existence. But at that time, your people shall be delivered, every one who is found written in the book. Many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. Those who are wise shall shine like the brightness of the sky, and those who lead many to righteousness, like the stars forever and ever, shall increase. Our second reading comes today from Paul and his letter to the people of Corinth. That's 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verses 51 through 55. Listen, I will tell you a mystery. We will not all die, but we will all be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet. For the trumpet will sound, and the dead will be raised imperishable, and we will be changed. For this perishable body must put on imperishability, and this mortal body must put on immortality. When this perishable body puts on imperishability, and this mortal body puts on immortality, then the saying that is written will be fulfilled. Death has been swallowed up in victory. Where, O death, is your victory? Where, O death, is your sting?
That was a reading. Just owned that one. You said I put strange in the intro to that. You said if you said that at your Church of North, you'd be shot. Not here. We can call scriptural things strange because they often are. Yeah, you got that right. Well, let's see what our teleprompter does with us today, shall we? Here we go. So I wonder how many of you keep a bucket list, a list of things you want to do and experience in your life before you are called up to so-called the big leagues. I'm guessing many of you do, right? Some bucket list things. Maybe want to share one or two? Quick bucket list thing? Yeah?
I want to go to Australia.
Australia, bucket list, absolutely. Any other bucket list things? Yeah?
I had the honor of going to Jerusalem with a Jewish delegation in Ohio. And,
Nice.
my bucket list is to get Anita there sometime.
Awesome. It's a great bucket list thing. Yeah?
Celebrate an anniversary in Key West.
Celebrate an anniversary of Key West.
My bucket list is to visit the most deprived places on the face of earth.
All right. The most deprived places on the face of the earth. That's a specific bucket list thing, absolutely. Any other bucket list things? Yeah.
There's a hot air balloon that goes out to the surface and returns that one.
Ooh, that's bucket list. That's bucket list material. No doubt. I've got a couple. Oh, go ahead, Sandy.
To go on a hot air balloon ride.
Hot air balloon ride. There you go. Good bucket list things. I got a few. One of mine was to become a pastor and lead a great church. How about that? I got it. Check. Another one was to find my soulmate and spend the rest of my life with her. Check. I had to say that's our anniversary, as I said earlier. So, I'd love to win the Masters. Go to the Masters. I'm not so sure about that one. I'd like to see the Vikings win a Super Bowl. Better luck with the Masters, right? I'd love to climb Mount Everest. I better start with a small hill here in Florida, huh? Okay, in all seriousness, I brought that up because I really do have a bucket list. And one big experience that I just long to have is to go spend a few days in Mexico at what is known as Dia de los Muertos, or the Day of the Dead, right? Oh, yeah. It's really actually 3 days of the dead. You know that? It's a multi-day fiesta-style celebration that's purpose is to celebrate those loved ones that have passed on to the other side, who are continuing their journeys in a new and transformed way. It's a celebration to invite their spirits back to be with their families during this feast. This awesome celebration has its origins amongst the indigenous people of Mexico, who, beginning tomorrow on Halloween and then going through Wednesday, will build colorful altars, and they'll bake ceremonial foods, and they'll dress up in the most colorful of costumes, and they'll throw lavish parties, and they'll feast together, all in remembrance of the beloved ones that have departed this world before them. They do so with the hope that those spirits have come back. They have come back to join them, even for a short time, and even just to share a meal. Take a look at some of these beautiful decorated altars dedicated to loved ones. Some are like really small shoebox size, and some are massive and complex displays of love, yet they're all just really colorful and celebratory of the life whose loss they are lamenting and whose spirit they are hoping will be drawn back, even if just for a short time. I love this celebration, and I long to be a part of it someday. I want to invite you into this experience in these lavish, colorful celebrations of departed loved ones, because I see this in this ancient ceremonial practice that goes back to, in some estimations, to 3000 BCE, long time ago. I see it as a deeply meaningful and powerfully hopeful way to engage the death process, the one thing that touches us all in one way or another. What's that old expression? There are only two certainties in life. And what are they? They're death and taxes, right? Death will strike us by taking ones we love and eventually enveloping our own lives in a time of transition as well. Yet, in the Day of the Dead celebrations, I see so much hope manifest. The hope that we will commune with our loved ones again. The hope that we will experience their spirits and their presence in our lives. And the hope that we will experience their spirits again when we pass on, when we take that journey and deeper into the God in whom we live and move and share our being. So celebrations like this, they instill in me the confidence that death is just a transition. That's what it is. Death is just a doorway. It's like a second womb experience, in a sense. I mean, who remembers being born? Anybody here? Anybody want to fess up to that one? That's on my bucket list. I want to remember being born. I don't know what Freud would say about that, but... So in a sense, death is a doorway. Again, it's a second womb experience on the human journey as we leave this one life and enter into the realm of another. There's no fretting in these awesome celebrations, although the Catholic missionaries tried once upon a time to instill as best they could notions into this celebration, notions of heaven and hell, and punishment, reward, and comfort and misery. They tried, but at their core, this celebration is still practiced with those ancient nuances. They simply and beautifully reflect the journey that we are all on. As Jim Morrison so powerfully said, we live, we die, but death not ends it. Today's service is about remembering our loved ones, our saints that have passed on into new life, yet it is also a day to examine how our own tradition sees death and the afterlife. Now, unfortunately, so many of us as Christians have been conditioned to experience death only through the lens of Christian theology. And that's kind of like a Pavlovian system of rewards and punishments, right? Or being saved and being damned, and the afterlife is kind of dangled in front of us like a prize to be awarded for assenting to the right beliefs or living the right kind of life as laid out within our changing religious tradition. If we do these things, we will be saved. We will see our loved ones again in this next life that we have earned. If we do not do those things right, according to whoever's making the powers, we risk swimming in the rivers of fire for all eternity and will never be saved. What is that? And I'll argue, I'm going to say something controversial here.
Shocker.
That salvation is the greatest crime and sin ever perpetuated on humanity.
Yes.
Wow! This idea of us needing salvation has robbed death of its depth and stripped it of any notion of being an intimate part of our human journey. As strange as that kind of sounds to say, it's about power by a narrow, controlling church. It's about aligning people's lives and beliefs by those who think they know the will of God and who have the power to back up that claim. It's, I think a better way of putting it, it's just complete and utter garbage. And it's time we threw this ghastly idea into the theological garbage heap. And really, folks, think about it. I mean, okay, let's stop for a moment and think about it. Humanity has been in a stage that scientists label Homo sapien on Earth for about 200,000 years. That's what they say. The church and its notion of salvation is necessary for the experience of an afterlife has only been around for about 1,600 years. So think about that. I take my shoes off and do the math on that. It's 198,400 years, give or take, that people lived and died. They lived and they died, and they did so when there was no original sin to save them from. There was no church to judge them. There was no Jesus Christ who takes away the sins of the world. There were no last judgments, no merits for the afterlife, no rules, just life and the journey of death that we all take. Do you ever ask yourself, as I do anytime I encounter a theological assertion, how did we get here? In this case, how did our death experience come to be filtered through the lens of Christian theology, through sin and salvation, through Jesus Christ, the only path to heaven? Well, it's actually really, as most theological things, really easily traceable throughout history. I want to give you a little run. For starters, we need to go way back into ancient cultures, such as the Egyptian culture. They had this idea that when one died, they had to travel to the underworld, and they had to face trials and gatekeepers in order to reach the god Osiris, and in front of whom they would plead their case for entry into the afterlife. Can you imagine that one? First, they stood in front of what was known as the 42 divine judges. That's part one. So you got to pass that test first. And then part two involved a weighing of the heart against what you told the judges. The heart being the record of all one did in their lifetime. If the scale's balanced, check, you're in. You get your granted eternity and you're good to go into what was called the field of rushes, where life resumed pretty much as it had before you died. Just kind of go on again. Those who didn't pass the test, though, well, they fell into the hands of demons and they received their eternal torment. Sound familiar? How about the Greeks? For the Greeks, their earliest history, they had, of course, many gods and goddesses, and one of them was named Hades. You've heard of Hades, right? Yeah, he was a brother of Zeus and Poseidon. Hades was the god of the underworld, where all mortals went when they died. Everybody went to Hades. That's just what you did. Cross the river Styx, right? Go to Hades. Hades was just kind of a place to hang out for all, wander around. What do you do down there? Just wander around for eternity? It's a gloomy place, probably like detention for a high schooler or something like that. Forever, you know? Well, this Greek civilization developed, though, you know, so did the afterlife and their concept of it. It dawned on the Greeks that, you know, not everybody, especially the greats and the heroes, not everybody should have to go dwell down there in that detention center that's Hades. So the concept of the Elysian Fields was originated. That was a place where the rich and the famous go the philosophers, the athletes, the powerful, the Kardashians, I don't know. What was that? Life was great in the Elysian fields. That's where you wanted to be. Where according to Homer, life is easiest for the men. I don't know what that means for women. Really, women don't get into the Elysian fields. And according to Hesiod, they lived in the Elysian fields untouched by sorrow. I don't know if I'd want to spend eternity with the Kardashians. I'm not so sure about that one. Judaism, which obviously Christianity emerged out of, had no real concrete beliefs in the afterlife. The Pharisees believed in a general resurrection of the dead to come, and the Sadducees did not. They did not believe that. Some Talmudic sects of Judaism, however, did believe in what they called the world to come, where the righteous enjoy a lavish eternal existence according to how they lived their lives. Others, those who did not live so righteously, not looking at anybody in particular, well, they descended to a place called Gehenna, which I know you've heard of, where for a period not to exceed 12 months they are punished. Now, why 12 months? And after the 12 months, they assume their place in the world to come. And only the ultra-wicked are punished the whole 12 months. You might only get 6 months of punishment if you didn't do too many bad things. But the really wicked are punished for the whole 12 months. And then their souls are either destroyed or they live on in a state of remorse. As far as the Bible goes, the first ever reference to resurrection or to the final judgment and afterlife comes from that Daniel book, reading that we just heard. Daniel is a strange apocalyptic book. It was written somewhere between the 6th century BCE and the 2nd century. So I wanted to throw that in for context. Now, as Christianity emerged out of this milieu and preached a strong message of general resurrection, eternal life for those who believed in Jesus Christ until around the 10th or 11th century, the Common Era, when in the misery of the Middle Ages, judgment really took hold and took center stage. Purgatory entered the scene. Yeah, you've all heard of purgatory, right? And one's life after death experience was squarely at the mercy of an increasingly powerful religious structure and its rules, the Roman Catholic Church. Hell, for the first time, became really, really real and really, really awful. Well, finally, I would be remiss not to mention him today, as this is technically Reformation Sunday as well. Things began to change as Martin Luther nailed his 95 thesis. I'm not going to do this 95 times, though. 95 thesis to the church door at Wittenberg. Now, Luther struggled all his life as a priest with judgment and hell. He could not wrap his mind around it. It kept him up at night, and finally he had enough. His breaking point came when a certain man named Johann Tetzel came to his town selling indulgences. You heard of those? Yeah. A monetary payment that could lessen one's time in purgatory for a loved one and curry favor with God to get them into eternal life. Who came up with that? The Catholic Church did to fund St. Peter's. That's who. That's historical. And you know what Tetzel's line was? You've heard me say it before. A coin in the coffer rings, a soul from purgatory springs. Coin in the coffer rings, a soul from purgatory springs. That was Tetzel's line that set Luther on a tangent. And the poor handed over their coins that could have fed their families. They handed them over to save their tormented loved ones who were sitting for eternity in this place called purgatory. With Luther, then it all changed, and we Protestants sitting here live our lives under his idea of sola fide, which means by faith alone. I wanted you to hear that little Cliff Notes version of history, because like all theological assertions about God, they have a history to them. They were created by humanity. And it's been filtered through the lenses of experiences of various cultures and times, one strongly influencing and building on and borrowing from and adapting from another. These experiences all culminate right here with us today in this church as we still live our lives under that ancient religious paradigm. The death experience for us is still being filtered through this history and any kind of life after death experience is still held captive to that paradigm, even as we try to run from it. And I think that is hugely unfortunate to our spiritual journeys and the transformation that awaits us when we ultimately journey into death, as many of our loved ones have done before us. Now, I chose Paul's words about death today because I have a love-hate relationship with them when it comes to death and what awaits us afterwards. I think Paul got himself a little caught up in the glories of resurrection hysteria as he inked this letter to the community at Corinth, as he believed Jesus' second coming was literally immediately upon him in his time. So we take him with a grain of salt here. But I still think he was on to something. I always say he was either on something or on to something. I think this time he was really on to something. But how about the first part? I'm going to take you into the hate part first. What I don't like about that text. I've suffered a lot of loss. Many of you have as well, you know. I've lost, in the last just few years, I've lost a dad, lost a sister, she's 49 years old, lost an awesome father-in-law. You know, I know many of you can relate, right? You've lost. I mean, my sister was 49 years old, you know, vibrant spirit, died from cancer just way too young a few short years ago. And I can tell you, and most of you know this from your own experiences with death, that death freaking stings, right? It stings. It sucks. It stings and it wounds and it cuts deep into our humanity and it alters the core of who we are as human beings when we lose. It really does. So where's death's sting? Paul asks. Well, I'll tell you where. Paul. It's in every moment that you hear your deceased beloved's favorite songs. It's right there. You know, it's when the quiet memory then of them slips into your mind when you're daydreaming, you know? It's when families get together for the first time after death and someone is missing. It's those first holidays. Oh, those milestones, right? It's those special days that you used to share together. So, oh, death, where is your sting? It lives in the heart of each moment. It really does. It sucks. It's real, and it's there, and it's raw. Death stings. How can it not? But if you stay with this text, you stay with it for just a little while, you begin to see something else in what Paul is saying. He's actually quoting the prophet Hosea with his words, and he's talking about restoration, in this case of Israel, in a really dark time of death and misery, that out of death comes the reality of something new. Paul calls it a mystery. He calls it change. He calls it transformation. He says, let me tell you a mystery. You will not die. We will not die, but we will be changed. We will not die, but we will be changed. His language gets a little flowery, and he is a theological person of his own time, but add those words to his other words about how we live, and we move, and we share our being in God, and you begin to see that he was taking a radically new and strangely progressive step out of the religious beliefs around death in his time. In fact, Paul never once, anywhere mentions the word hell. It's not a part of his theology. He only speaks of death as life transformed. He speaks of how now we see dimly, but someday we will see clearly. He knows we don't have the answer of life after death, and he knows that death hurts, yet he stands confident that when we die, we will be transformed. And when we die into this mystery that we call God. And that is nothing short of breathtaking. That's what he's saying. That's what we need to be proclaiming today, my friends. That's what we need to be proclaiming, that the old paradigm of sin and salvation and reward and punishment is just no longer useful or meaningful. The death and the what's next is much deeper of an experience than our religions have ever allowed us to dream. In fact, when people ask me, this uber progressive theologian, do I believe in life after death? I answer them, absolutely. Absolutely. They're usually really shocked, but I say absolutely. Yet it's nothing like we've been told. I believe it more akin to author Henry Miller does when he wrote, "Of course you don't die, nobody dies. Death doesn't exist. You only reach a new level of vision, a new realm of consciousness, a new unknown world." I love that. I believe in death like our Native American friend White Eagle wrote, "You live on earth only a few short years, which you call an incarnation, and then you leave your body like an outworn dress and go for refreshment in your true home in the spirit." You like that one? I believe in the afterlife like Khalil Gibran wrote when he said, "When the earth shall claim your limbs, then you shall truly dance." The earth shall claim your limbs, and you shall truly dance. And finally, I believe in the afterlife. I believe in the afterlife. That energy, and in particular the animating spirit that each of us have, that is unique and it's never going to be destroyed. Yet it does live on to dance and to reconnect as it more fully merges into the God in which we live and move and share our being together. And I guess that's why this Day of the Dead celebration strikes me so deeply, and why I want to go and experience it, because in it I see the path to letting go of the theological baggage around the death and dying experience, and just opening ourselves to the trust that this is just a natural part of the journey in life, that we will all take this journey at some point, that there is nothing to fear. And finally, that our loved ones that have taken the journey into death before us, they're okay. They're okay. They're okay. Transformed in spirit, dwelling more deeply in the God experience, and still connected to us in ways that we just can't remotely understand in this time. So I guess for me, I cannot and need not say I believe anything more than this. And I think I can even begin to say with Paul, "O death, where is your sting?" I invite you now to close your eyes. Just breathe for a moment. Bring to center the saints of your own lives that have journeyed into death ahead of you, loved ones, friends, treasured pets. There's one calling right now. Beloveds, soulmates, oh God, children, oh. Hold them there for a moment. Just hold them. See them smile at you, greet you. Trust that they are waiting for you to welcome you home someday, to guide you on your journey. Let us always trust that we are surrounded by those we dared to love and lost, but only for a time. Breathe them in. And now let's let the choir remind us of that. While images of your saints play overhead, we are surrounded. Let us never forget that, and may that bring us a deep sense of peace. Amen.
Lord.